Members of Parliament, support staff, viewers, radio listeners, all following this meeting via social media, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, to all of you, good morning. I welcome you to the continuation of this Central Committee meeting of Parliament. This is Central Committee meeting number 22. And we continue since Monday with handling the draft national budget for St. Maarten, the budget 2025. During the past days, we have extensively elaborated the reason why we are handling a new draft ordinance establishing the budget for the country 2025. During the past days, we have had members of Parliament with their questions on the draft before us. We have had several ministers appear in Parliament to respond to these questions, and this is the process that we will continue today. At this time, I want to therefore welcome the Minister of HSPEI, Housing, Spatial Development, Environment and Infrastructure, Minister Patrice Gums, who is here with his support staff to respond to questions regarding the VROMI ministry. We have established a quorum of 4 factions, which represent a quorum in Central Committee meetings, once the representation of those factions are 8 or more members of Parliament. So we have that quorum, and I invite you to stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notices of lateness from several members of Parliament, namely MP Roseburg, MP Kotai, MP Jansen Webster, MP Daryl York, and MP Lyndon Lewis. Members of Parliament, are there any notifications from the floor of Parliament? That does not appear to be the case. So as I mentioned earlier, we are deliberating in Central Committee setting the national ordinance stipulating the budget for country St. Maarten for the year 2025. This is document IS number 1093 of this parliamentary year and is dated the 23rd of May of this year. And it is national ordinance number 185 in the records of Parliament. We continue this morning with the Minister of VROMI, Minister Patrice Gums, who will be responding to questions that regard his ministry. Minister Gums, I invite you to take the floor on this matter after bidding you and your support staff a warm welcome here in Parliament. Minister Gums.
Morning, Chair Lady, members of Parliament, those listening and viewing online. Thank you all once again for the questions. Let me begin by introducing my delegation. I'm joined by my Secretary General, Mr. Kenson Plezimoon, my Chief of Staff, Mr. Luciano Nichols, and my Chief Legal Advisor, Theodora Snyders. We begin the questions posed first by the MP, Daryl York. He asked, road resurfacing project, how much has been spent from the road resurfacing budget to date? Approximately 5.4 million guilders has been spent thus far on road resurfacing under the capital expenditure budget. How much is still left? An estimated 300,000 guilders is remaining. How much has been spent on road markings? Around 150,000 guilders was spent on road markings. The MP requests documentation for the site for the height services done for Sir Garden Road and the LB Scotch Road. At this time, of course, as indicated before, height surveys were not part of the terms of reference for this project, nor were they requested after. MP requests the mixed designs for Sir Garden Road, Point Blanche Road, and LB Scotch Road. The requested documentation design mix will be requested from the contractor and submitted in writing. What has been done different in the manner of execution or planning as it pertains to the one done prior to the ministry's tenure? The Department of Infrastructure has taken steps to enforce the use of better quality materials and equipment from contractors. Internally, the department has also restructured its project management team compared to the tenure of the previous minister. What is the status of the side road project? Is the schedule up to date? Is it incurring delays? For the side road project, approximately 80% of the project has been completed thus far. Moving on to the MP's second question. There was going to be removal of construction structures. What is the status on that, and how many removal orders has the minister signed since December? A total of 24 stop removal orders have been signed since December, and several have been taken down. The ministry will continue its efforts in this regard. Erosion problems in the hills, MP would like an update, especially as it pertains to South Reward, Mary's Fancy, and Ebenezer areas. The ministry is currently engaged in addressing erosion issues throughout the country. In the area of Cul-de-Sac, we are busy looking into the areas mentioned by the MP and are finalizing emergency interventions in Ebenezer, and will move to areas based on assessment of critical urgency. A planned approach is being prepared to mitigate the flooding of the lower-lying areas in the Cul-de-Sac Basin with the implementation of retention ponds. The plans are being reviewed, and a draft request to allocate the necessary funds has been submitted for consideration in CapEx 2026. Who is part of the zoning team? The policy department at VROMI will be the lead with zoning. We are aiming to have a comprehensive team, both in and out of house, of multiple stakeholders with various backgrounds and related expertise. The ministry will soon start the process of procuring legal expertise to support the process. The MP would like to see the Memorandum of Basic Principles for Zoning. The MP can be referred to Landsverordening ruimtelijke ontwikkelingsplannen or zoning ordinance, in which the basic principles of zoning are laid down. A copy of this can, of course, be sent to Parliament, and I'll just very briefly go through what these basic principles are. The basic principles of zoning, as outlined in this ordinance, are centered on promoting the sustainable and balanced development of land and resources, zoning services to coordinate spatial development plans in a way that protects public interests, ensures compatibility of land uses, and prevents conflicts between residential, commercial, industrial, and environmental functions. It is based on a hierarchical planning structure, starting from a national spatial development plan down to detailed zoning regulations. Zoning plans must consider aspects such as safety, accessibility, environmental protection, cultural heritage, and infrastructure needs. Additionally, the ordinance emphasizes transparency, public participation, and legal certainty in the planning process to ensure that development decisions are fair, predictable, and aligned with long-term policy goals. Can the minister provide the preliminary draft zoning plan, and if it's ready, has it been presented to COM? The plan map is not final and has not been presented to COM. The plan for coastal and ecologically sensitive areas, or green zoning plan, that was presented to Parliament earlier this year is preliminary and subject to change. It basically envisions what we wish to achieve. The preliminary map was shared in the presentation to Parliament at the time. However, it is not yet published separately for above-mentioned reasons. MP has also asked the findings of the stakeholder analysis. What is the communication strategy? Has the internal VROMI consultation taken place? And can the minister give a short summary of the findings? No stakeholder analysis has been done as yet. However, we will build further on the stakeholder analysis that was done in the past by the NGOs, the private sector, ministries, and semi-governmental institutions. Will, of course, all be part of the stakeholder list. Regarding the green zoning plan, VROMI is now busy making the framework for this plan, where we will at least already include climate adaptation options. Furthermore, in collaboration with external assistance from the IPDC, the International Panel for Deltas and Coastal Areas, funded by the Netherlands, we will be conducting a coastal erosion study and geotechnical study in order to determine vulnerable areas where construction should either not be allowed or be subject to stricter building regulations to ensure safety and mitigate environmental impact. Have public consultations begun? If so, how are they going? Has the preliminary zoning plan been discussed with the public? If so, can the minister give a synopsis of this? No consultation with the public has taken place, as there is not yet a finalization of the comprehensive island-wide zoning. Consultation has, of course, taken place for the individual zoning maps that exist. What is the current status of the building permit backlog? What is the number? How many permits has been signed since January? How many does the department have in their possession for over 1 year? What is that number? What is the ministry doing about this? Concerning the backlog of permits, the department will be showing from the year of 2020 to 2025, so the past 5 years. Please keep in mind there are previous years that have permits still open, of course. The following years are as follows. 2020 has 60 permits still open. 2021 has 78 permits still open. 2022 has 64 permits still open. 2023 has 126 permits still open. 2024 has 165 permits still open. And 2025 has 89 permits still open. The ministry will be working the amount of permits that has been, the amount of permits that has been signed from January 2025 until present is as follows. 10 permits in January, 5 approved and 1 denied. In February, a total of 6 permits, 8 permits, 7 approved and 1 denied in March for a total of 8 permits, 4 permits in April, and 19 approved and 4 denied in May, a total of 23 permits. This gives a total of 51 permits signed. The Permits Department is working on a plan of action to tackle the matter, and we'll extrapolate on this in a further response. A couple of months ago, the minister made public that there's bribery happening in the Permits Department, and he would be investigating. Has the Ministry of Justice been involved in the investigation? Does the ministry have any leads? Let me first begin by answering that first question. The ministry has enlisted TWO as to be part of their baseline measurement on being undertaken in government to review current procedures, their effectiveness, and ways to improve. This is critical in supporting our move towards digitization of our processes, which will build accountability and transparency in requesting not only permits, but also waivers and inspection reports. In addition, the ministry will launch a forensic audit of decision-making that will cover not only the Department of Permits, but the ministry as a whole. This will form part of the investigation. Back to the question, has the Ministry of Justice been involved in investigation? The Ministry of Justice has been consulted, and hence a suggestion to address this holistically as part of a review of the ministry, with the aim of creating an environment that diminishes opportunities for bribery. Part of creating the environment is speaking about it. Yes, we are on a small island, but unfortunately, not saying or doing anything doesn't solve the issue. It only facilitates it and demotivates civil servants who come to work each and every day and do the right thing. Does the ministry have any leads? As stated in my press statements, there are correlations between processing times in particular. These will be reviewed during initiatives undertaken. What is important to recognize is that finding people willing to come forward is not easy. As such, I have repeatedly made reminders throughout my time as minister highlighting the following. 1, permits only comprise of 2 costs, the processing fee and the government contribution that is clearly indicated on all permits. 2, the negative impact on the economy and credibility of doing business in St. Maarten due to instances of corruption. Has anyone been suspended? Has anyone been fired? Has anyone been questioned? To all of these questions, the answer is no. And finally, in that question, the MP asked, investigation status, and of course, I believe I've given an overview of this in my opening remarks to the question. The MP's next question, this is MP York still, which projects has the ministry executed outside of the road resurfacing project and side road project? The ministry is executing a total of 8 projects outside the 2 mentioned. These cover a wide range of topics and include 2 in erosion mitigation, 2 in stormwater management, 1 in administration and procedural enhancement, 1 in capacity study, 1 in a drainage management project, and 1 in an environmental protection fund. In addition, 3 private-public partnerships are being explored to address critical infrastructure needs. The motion pertaining to zoning, pond protection, and beach policies and beach access by the MP. Has the ministry done anything with it since it has been passed? If so, what has been done? What is slated to be done, and the MP requests timelines. As previously mentioned, we are in the process of developing green zoning framework, scoping a coastal erosion geotechnical study, setting up a zoning team, and hiring legal expertise. Are the stormwater pumps operational? If yes, what are their capacity? When will the stormwater pumps be installed, which has been lingering for years? And who has responsibility, NRPB or government? The pump located at the Vromy Yard was repaired last year and has since failed again, and is undergoing repairs, expected to be back online later this month. However, the pump cell garden has been deemed reparable for some years now. The National Recovery Program Bureau, NRPB, is not involved in the procurement of new pumps. This responsibility lies with the Ministry of Vromy, with assistance from the Dutch Ministry BZK. The tender process for replacing the pumps is now in the evaluation phase, with installation expected by December 2025. Is there a calamity post for government to tap into for disaster relief for residents with regards to food, water, and building materials? If yes, where exactly is that budgeted? Such assistance is offered via VSA, not Vromy. As to the budget post, I have asked my colleague minister to provide the information. Seeing the time frame we have gone through with the landfill, to still have it not reprofiled and Irma landfill still not removed, are we ready for another wave of debris if a serious hurricane hits the island? If no, what is the suggested solution, and what is the price tag for this solution? The intervention on the landfill is part of the Emergency Debris Management Program, EDMP. It is important to note the following. EDMP has had several different phases. The decision to have physical intervention in the landfill was only taken in 2022. In the event of another major storm similar to Hurricane Irma, St. Maarten is not yet adequately prepared to handle a new wave of debris as it relates to space. Part of the project requirements is that an alternative site for emergency waste disposal be sought. Vromy is investigating the options that include both local, temporary solutions, as well as international long-term solutions, combined with implementation of a circular economy, inclusive of recycling and composting. Illegal garages. We are still on the questions of MP York. Illegal garages. A couple of months ago, the minister had an article where he stated that he would be cracking down on illegal garages. What is the status of this, and have garages been closed since December? The ministry, in conjunction with TEAT, has conducted several site visits to ensure legality of garages. Upon inspection, garages are stopped and given the opportunity to legalize if possible. The possibility of this is, of course, based on draft zoning laws and the applicability of a hindrance permit. During the visit, it was noted that a number of places are in fact not operating as mechanics, but as storage sites for several objects besides vehicles. This would therefore not fall within the scope of the hindrance permit, but directly under the waste ordinance, wherein which such storage is deemed unlawful. The ministry then informs owners that such practices, i.e. storage or hoarding of items, are not permitted and must therefore be removed. There is a boom going towards Blue Marine. Who owns that land? Is it government land or private land? Since when has this been private land? Government owns the land, and it is issued in long lease to Resorts of the World. A building permit was issued for the security booth. What are the plans for the use of the recently procured funds? This is in relation to the SDE++. St. Maarten has been allocated approximately 35 million euros out of the 150 million euro subsidy allocation from SDA++. The funds are earmarked for energy transition, but can only be used to invest in areas that cannot be financed through the market due to expense, risk, or complexity. During the Caribbean Climate and Energy Conference in Curacao, I spoke on the level of penetration of renewable energy in St. Maarten. The current GB concession agreement requires a 2% minimum. This currently stands at 0. The only country in the Kingdom or islands in Dutch Caribbean without any source derived from renewables. The regional standard now stands at 25%. Given that the current conditions for use of the subsidy are high, while in the Netherlands last week, I had meetings with the Ministry of Climate and Inclusive Green Growth regarding the need for support for St. Maarten at the very primary levels. We have submitted a proposal to the Ministry and are awaiting consideration for its use. I believe these are now moving on to the questions of MP Duran. Yes. The MP would like to know if the defense notes the plaidoyer, St. Dominic, all those different documents that should be working, functioning governments, the best interest in regards to building permit court cases of the last year can be provided to Parliament. Dear Chair Lady, I fully respect Parliament's oversight role and share its commitment to transparency. However, I must also be clear. The documents being requested, such as legal defenses and pleadings, are part of a confidential legal proceedings. They include internal legal strategies and privileged communication between the Ministry and its legal counsel. Disclosing such information could seriously compromise the government's legal position, especially in an ongoing case. It's also important to point out the Ministry's position are already reflected in official court rulings. These are, in fact, public and provide an objective, transparent, and authoritative summary of the arguments made by all parties, including the government. Given all of this, I do not consider it appropriate to release internal legal documents. That said, I am open to provide Parliament with a general overview of the relevant rulings and the legal and policy principles that guide the Ministry's approach to these matters, within, of course, the limits of confidentiality and due process. All the building permits, court cases, and written documents and advices for the court cases can they also provide to Parliament as well for the last year. Dear Chair Lady, I believe I addressed the core of this issue in my previous response. As I stated, legal documents as such cannot be provided to Parliament. Of course, I remain open to providing Parliament with an overview of relevant cases and, of course, our legal approach where possible. What classification is being used when a civil works permit is being issued? How is that described in National Gazette? Can an example be provided to Parliament? The classification administration number that the department uses is the same as the building permit, such as BP 002025, for example, with the description of activities such as demolition, infrastructure dredging, clearing of land, felling of trees, etc. Monies were left for roadworks, infrastructure projects in terms of sewage connection to the homes, and people would like to know how much of those funds have been spent thus far. What is the Ministry's plan to increase the speed in which this is happening? Does the Ministry run the risk of losing the funds if money is not spent timely? Has a request gone for 2026 to get more CapEx to continue the great work in terms of paving of all roads and all side roads, and also putting together more home connects for sewage? That would alleviate a lot of the sewage situations that we see persons complain about on the island. Stated earlier, Madam Chair, through you, for the side road project, approximately 80% of the project has been completed thus far. The funds for the project are secured at Central Bank of St. Maarten in Curacao and not at risk of being lost. A draft proposal has been prepared and submitted for CapEx 2026 in order to continue with this project. With regards to Dutch Quarter sewage connections, the advice is being prepared to commence the implementation of the household connections. The MP requests all documents related to the Rainforest Adventure, issuance of the land, which minister signed the deed issuing the land, which discount agreement was made on the amount he paid. MP was told that the tax exemption, long lease exemptions write-off took place last 2 months by the Minister and Council of Ministers. Was there any request to substantiate that? What would be a reason to write it off? Long lease is not being written off for private citizens when having problems financially. In the eyes of the MP, the business already got a sweet deal, discount on multiple fronts, and get a write-off for tax or long lease. Clarity is being sought, as well as requesting all documents. The final decree for rainforest case can be shared with the MP via the standard private procedure. The decree was signed on March 13, 2015 by Acting Minister Roy Marcel Gums. The decree was dated on January 12, 2016. During that period, Angel Myers was Minister of ROMI. In 2019, 2 requests were made by Rainforest for a long lease canon exemption discount. In 2020, extensive talks were held with Rainforest and the ministry and then minister, which resulted in a 3rd request, which was not finalized. In accordance with skipped a line, asking to relinquish part of the land and a reduced canon price per square meter. The request was not finalized. In accordance with Article 17 of the National Ordinance on the Issuance of Land in Long Lease, a request to relinquish a leasehold right may not be denied. Therefore, it was deemed legally and reasonably necessary to approve partial relinquishment from July 7, 2020, the date of RFA's 3rd formal request. In 2024, the talks with Rainforest continued, which resulted in a signed draft decree in which a part of the land was relinquished. Currently, new certificates of management are being finalized, and no discount, reduced price, or exemption was given. I do not know of any tax reduction either. Moving on to the questions of MP La Cruz. How many building permits are pending, and how many fees would have been received if these were approved? Madam Chair, through you, concerning the backlog, we provided that information in the previous response. If that's okay for the MP, if not, I can go through the total amount as well of the backlog. And the final part of that question, of course, the amount that would be received if this permit were approved cannot be calculated or given an estimated cost. The reason for this is because each permit will have a different cost. This is due to the purpose and surface area of the building and structure. So until all these permits are actually processed, we don't actually know the cost of the outstanding. The MP's second question, can the minister give us an idea how it works when our citizens are experiencing sewage water in the street and what they actually have to do? If persons believe they're experiencing sewage water, you can contact the ministry via email and submit timestamp photos for follow-up. In addition, the department created the QR code where all questions and photos can be directly sent to the ministry, specifically inspection department, with the information for follow-up. Persons are also able to directly contact KPSM if they observe disposal of wastewater onto public roads, which is a violation that falls under KPSM APK. And very briefly, Madam Chair, allow me to share the email to which all those photos can be sent. So again, regarding sending an email, it is vromi-inspection@stmartingov.org. There is a tender from the NRPB for the tires on the dump. Found it strange since I know someone that owns a tire place in Soccer Garden to do something with the tires on the dump and requested him to submit to government. It was found strange to be tendered by NRPB. So why is NRPB, why NRPB? This is a government issue. Madam Chair, through you, all initiatives regarding EDMP, that's waste reforms, is being managed through the World Bank Trust Fund project, which is administered by NRPB. There is currently a tender out, and until that tender is reviewed and dealt with, I prefer to refrain from discussing topics as, in fact, no one has actually won this tender at all. Yeah, and indeed, just to clarify, this is not part of the national budget. Then to the MP's last question, can Minister let me know if he sat down with the Housing Foundation and ran through their plans for getting our low-income homes in place? What were his conclusions? Were any requests made, and how does he plan to move forward with that? Since taking office, I have met with the Housing Foundation 4 times. The discussion focused on the role of the foundation, current and proposed housing projects, and the relationship with government. VROMI has the following priorities to address some of these discussions. 1, a clear communication of the responsibilities of the Housing Foundation versus government versus tenant. 2, discussions with stakeholders on issues with access in some proposed sites for low-income housing, as well as medium-income housing. The performance agreement, that's been long-standing. And then finally, we have initiated meetings every other month, starting last month, to support stronger alignment, especially as we reach the date for the delivery of the housing policy. Moving to the questions of MP Lyndon Lewis. Staffing shortages, with the key departments such as Staff Bureau operating only 29% and the capacity at infrastructure at 68%. How do you plan to address these critical understaffing issues, and what recruitment target has been set for 2025? Madam Chair, the budget, through you, provides for all positions of the Staff Bureau in accordance with the function book. At this moment in time, all vacancies have been published, interviews held, selections done, and now are in different stages to finalize the recruitment process. Concerning infrastructure management, there is insufficient budget to secure all positions as outlined in the function book. The department is, however, taking early steps in engaging with the P&O department to already prepare the recruitment process for roles we know are to become vacant in the short and mid-term. Doing this earlier than usual helps secure continuity by taking more realistic recruitment timelines into account. What is the ministry's strategy to not only fill current vacancies, but also retain skilled personnel across core divisions? By what timeline do you aim to reach at least 90% of staffing capacities? At this time, the ministry has not established a formal goal or corresponding plan to reach 90% staffing capacity. However, we have taken meaningful steps towards strengthening our workforce and improving operational efficiency. This year, several departments have been assigned targets to define projects that leverage innovation and modernization to streamline internal processes and increase output. These initiatives, are designed to create more resilient and efficient teams, which in turn support long-term staffing stability. These prior proposals are due at the end of 2025. In parallel, the departments are actively measuring employee sentiment and addressing workplace culture. One of the key initiatives in this area is the introduction of the Scrum. Scrum is an agile framework that helps teams work more effectively by breaking down complex work into manageable pieces, encouraging regular communication, and enabling quick adjustments so that they can deliver better results faster and with greater collaboration. The Permits Department has already begun implementing this approach, and early results show improved teamwork and engagement. What specific outcome does the ministry expect from the new national housing policy, and how will it directly address the current shortage of affordable housing for low and middle income families? The high-level goal or impact of the policy is to provide adequate housing for all St. Martiners in all stages of their lives. Everyone that is a resident of St. Maarten should have access to good housing and a good living environment. Regarding the housing shortage of affordable housing for low and medium income group, the policy sets a list of goals and actions for the following target groups: young professionals, vulnerable low-income people, and elderly people. The goals include the amount of housing, the form of housing such as new houses, repurposing, and densification. They also include necessary legal changes, financing options, and which stakeholders should be involved in the realization of housing for these groups. Can you provide a detailed timeline for the finalization, review, and implementation of the VROMI Landsverordening and associated LBHAM? In December 2023, the second draft of the Landsverordening VROMI was finalized with the help of an external legal expert. This draft was then vetted by the Department of YZV and returned with the Landsverordening with an extensive advice, and now the Landsverordening needs to be edited based on this advice. However, as we are facing legal capacity constraints, said editing has not taken place yet. When edited, of course, it will be sent to the Council advice for a second round of advising. How will you ensure meaningful stakeholder engagement and public input throughout the zoning and legislation process? And will the result of the consultations be transparently shared? Consultation with the public throughout the zoning process will follow stipulations of the zoning ordinance, specifically Article 4 to 7. Thus, the entire process will be transparent and based on the law. And very briefly, before a draft zoning plan is published, the minister must hold a public hearing where the preliminary draft is presented and feedback is collected. The hearing's time and location are publicly announced in local newspapers and official communication channels in both Dutch and English. The draft is then made available for public inspection at the government office for 30 days, during which anyone may submit written objections. A committee of experts appointed by national decree will review these objections and advise the minister. If no objections are filed, Parliament decides on the plan within 60 days. If objections are filed, this period is extended. Any changes made by Parliament to the draft or expert advice must be justified. After approval, the final plan is again available for public review for 30 days. During this time, those who previously objected or object to any amendments may file an appeal with the governor. What is the expected timeline of completion of a single comprehensive bestemmings plan for the country, and how will it address conflicting land use functions? Based on the past experience, the timeline to develop a bestemmings plan will be 1 to 2 years. Zoning regulations aim to ensure that conflicting land use are not in the vicinity of each other. Given that a lot of conflicting functions have been allowed in the past, we will need to assess these situations on a case-by-case basis and determine what the best solution in these cases can be. In principle, the zoning plan aims to conserve the functions that are already there. In and when new development or redevelopment occurs, the zoning regulations will be applicable. A potential consultant to assess with the development of zoning plan has been found, and an initial meeting will be soon held. How does the ministry plan to strengthen enforcement of environmental norms and reduce pollution in public and natural areas? VROMI is in the final stages of finalizing the new environmental norms for Sint Maarten. These norms will include standards for air, water, and soil pollution, meaning what level of emittance is allowed, and will be used in hindrance permits. In addition, the ministry is working to finalize enforcement policy that will give a stronger legal basis for implementation of the law. How many inspectors are currently assigned to enforce environmental standards, and does the 2025 budget include provisions for expanding this capacity? Following the retirement of one inspector in June, there's currently one inspector tasked with environmental enforcement. Recruitment is ongoing as the budget provides for this. Important to note is that a review of the current function books is needed to accommodate the growing demand on the department. This will, of course, be supported with technology. What concrete measures are budgeted for 2025 budget to improve wastewater treatment and prevent flooding, particularly in residential communities during a heavy rainfall? Flood-prone areas such as cul-de-sac basin are being worked on, whereas measures are being implemented to avoid flooding of the lower lying areas with the implementation of retention ponds. The plans, as stated before, are being reviewed, and a draft proposal for financing has been submitted for CapEx. Further expansion of the sewage network is also implemented in a separate project in collaboration with the Trust Fund. What steps are being taken to implement a sustainable national waste management and recycling system? With public education and incentives be part of this effort? This is one of the major interventions defined within one of our Trust Fund projects, of course, the EDMP. As part of this project, we plan to update our waste ordinance and carry out a physical intervention on the landfill, as well as introduce waste diversion programs. Public education through our Think Green campaign is part of this effort. These are currently being designed. What specific infrastructure maintenance or upgrade projects are included in 2025 budget, and how do they align with the goal of weather resilient development? The Department of Infrastructure Management will continue maintaining, upgrading existing roads, sidewalks, and swales and culverts along main roads, provided these remain within the scope of the department's work and not escalating to intensive projects. Upgrading the drainage system contributes, of course, to climate resilience. What is the ministry doing to ensure the public spaces, roads, transport hubs are clean, well lit, and properly monitored with working surveillance systems? To ensure well lit spaces, public spaces, a new agreement has been drafted between the Department of Infrastructure and NVGEBE. This agreement emphasizes the quality of lighting, specifically measured in lumens. In addition to improved lighting, the Police Force Sint Maarten KPSM is actively working to ensure public spaces are equipped with surveillance systems. Cleanliness across these areas is managed by contracted service providers with oversight managed by the Department of Infrastructure. What performance indicators or service level benchmarks will be used in the budget 2025 to evaluate whether infrastructure and public spaces meet accessible safety and maintenance standards? Accessibility standards are to be developed collaboratively by the Policy Department and the Department of Infrastructure Management. Public safety in these spaces is monitored by KPSM, while maintenance standards are upheld through contractual agreements with service providers. Given the number of consultant-led projects in the budget, what is being done to ensure quality control, cost efficiency, and the transfer of knowledge to the ministry staff? It is required of the consultants to carry out their assignment in accordance with terms of reference in which the deliverables and expectations are outlined. Consultants are working oftentimes daily with ROMI staff in a position for mutual education and growth. This is coupled with training opportunities, especially as it relates to the World Bank projects. How are you ensuring that consultants meet their contractual deliverables? And are there penalties for evaluation tools in place for underperformance? Deliverables and applicable penalties outlined in terms of reference, and in the event of underperformance, these of course can be applied based on evaluation of the work performance of the consultant. How are the trust fund resources being managed for the products under VROMI? The products are being managed based on the World Bank procedures and processes. All trust fund related products and related budgets are not part of the national budget. What reporting or oversight mechanisms exist to ensure accountability? This year, the ministry introduced a new monthly reporting mechanism as part of the performance targets for each department. This initiative is designed to enhance transparency, strengthen interdepartmental communication, and foster a culture of accountability across the organization. By standardizing regular reporting, departments are better equipped to track progress, identify challenges early, and align their efforts with broader strategic goals. Over time, this approach is expected to not only improve internal coordination, but also lead to more efficient and consistent communication with external stakeholders. Are there internal efficiency programs or training initiatives planned 2025 to improve the functioning of the ministry and reduce long-term reliance on outsourced services? At the moment, there are not much outsourced activities going on. However, the ministry has recently invested in capacity building through several training initiatives. Notably, staff participated in both basic and advanced GIS training sessions delivered by off-island experts. In addition, the ministry collectively contributed to the development of the Civil Works Manual. This collaborative process was intentionally designed to enhance internal knowledge and practical experience across all relevant departments and roles. By involving staff in every step of the manual's creation, the ministry aimed to strengthen institutional understanding of civil works procedures and promote cross-functional learning. Can you explain how the ministry plans to monitor and evaluate subsidies granted by SMHDF, so the Martin Housing Development Foundation, to ensure effectiveness, transparency, and alignment with the National Housing Strategy? Madam Chair, through you, very simply, the performance agreement is critical in ensuring this alignment. The agreement will provide clear benchmarks that will be used to support both strategic and operational goals. Moving now to the questions of MP Omar Otley. Landfill announcement, a letter was sent on April 2nd, but no response was received regarding the announcement to establish an entrance fee for the landfill, and there is concern in the legal foundation of this proposal. It is unsure whether the Minister of Rummy has the authority to implement such a fee under the existing waste ordinance, which includes, among others, household waste, liquid waste, commercial waste, car wrecks, etc., considering the ordinance does not appear to provide provisions for entrance fee for the landfill. Can clarification be provided for the legal basis for the decision and update on how it will impact the 2025 budget projections? Is it projected, and if so, if there's no legal basis for this, how will this impact the projection? MP Otley, through you, Madam Chair, let me first begin by offering my apologies for the oversight in not responding to your letter. Allow me to clarify. The establishment of an entrance fee. There are 4 disbursement conditions set by the World Bank and endorsed by the government since 2022 for the sustainability of the waste sector. These 4 conditions are: 1, a sound financial framework; 2, an established waste authority; 3, a revised waste ordinance; and 4, the interministerial work group being established. Over the course of my mandate, I have publicly discussed the future of waste as being one which will require financial contributions outside of the current tax revenues. The entrance fee is proposed as a pilot project in waste reform. During its conception, the entrance fee was not to be based on the National Ordinance on Waste Disposal, but the principles of private law. That is, persons are allowed to charge for use of their land. Questions, of course, arose regarding the validity of such as it relates to government and the provision of public services. As such, discussions evolved into amending the current waste ordinance to facilitate this change, with a further view to amend the full ordinance as part of the larger waste reforms. Both options are being discussed with the assistance of NRPB and the St. Maarten Development Fund. The entrance fee, the subsequent tipping fee, and the household contributions are part of the trajectory for implementing this sound financial framework as required by the project. At a later stage, the ministry aims to implement a comprehensive waste disposal fee. However, this will of course require a comprehensive amendment, as stated earlier, to the National Ordinance on Waste Disposal to establish the legal basis for recovering the costs associated with collection and processing of all waste. Madam Chair, an impacted 2025 budget is not anticipated. The MP's next question. Can you please provide a copy of the policy or proposal regarding the introduction of the entry fee at the landfill? Can you confirm whether this policy has been formally published and made available to the public? If so, when? The first proposed entrance fee was based on legal expertise procured by the NRPB in its function as coordinator of the project. Grounding this initiative on the private law, as stated, was reviewed and found to have legal basis, but, as stated in my previous response, did raise concerns regarding the applicability of private law on government services. And as stated, the discussion is ongoing. If the decision is taken to use the route of private law, there will be no policy for the entrance fee. However, policies will be required for the implementation for the comprehensive disposal fee in the future with a national ordinance as the legal basis. What is the legal basis for the proposed fee, particularly to the National Ordinance on Waste Disposal? Has it been reviewed and approved in accordance with appropriate legal procedures? Madam Chair, through you to MP Otley, with your indulgence, I believe I've answered this question with the response of my 2 previous questions, and of course, more than happy to address anything further in clarifications. The MP's final question. Please indicate whether any amendments to national ordinance are being considered. If so, have these amendments been introduced to Parliament for review? A terms of reference has been published to hire legal support to draft an updated waste ordinance. Several firms have reacted, whereas the ministry, together with NRPB, are in the selection phase to select the winning bidder. The intention is to have a draft ordinance ready for review by the end of 2025. Of course, the regular processes will be followed that will eventually lead to this being handled by Parliament. Moving on now to the questions of MP Sarah Westcott Williams. MP requests to provide an update on all answers given to herself and her faction members in answers to the questions of the first CC in Budget 2025. Several of these answers refer to things being updated and reports being expected. The MP wishes to know where we stand right now as per the answers given in the CC of back then. There were several sorts of commitments made to questions asked in the first debate. With regards to the island-wide zoning, as previously indicated, individual draft zoning plans are being used to advise the developments as proposed. These draft plans have been published on our website. The plan is to develop one green zoning plan for ecologically sensitive areas, and of course, one zoning plan for all remaining areas. As stated, we are now exploring and finalizing the hiring of the consultant for this. Concerning the green zoning plan will encompass natural areas including coastal and hillside regions, water bodies, and other areas deemed essential for climate adaptation and mitigation. The Mullet Bay area, including the Mullet Bay Pond, is included in this plan. Since the last debate, the ministry has taken the following actions with the help from IPDC, as previously mentioned. The ministry will, of course, do the following things based on that follow-up. A, develop a zoning plan framework that will include potential climate adaptation options, and B, conduct a coastal erosion and geotechnical study. Additionally, we are exploring external technical expertise, as stated, to help us with the legal process to establish the zoning plan. Financing the development of the entire zoning plan remains a challenge. When a framework is established, consultation sessions the public can, of course, start. And then finally, concerning the drainage and situation in Cul-de-Sac Basin, as stated before, a plan of approach is being prepared to mitigate the flooding in the lower-lying areas of Cul-de-Sac with the implementation of retention ponds. A plan for this is, of course, being reviewed, and a draft proposal has been submitted to CAPEX 2026. MP requests an update, and in some cases, answers to where matters stand with the motion as approved during the handling of budget. For instance, Basturika handhaving, administrative enforcement. VROMI is in the process of hiring external legal expertise to assist with both administrative enforcement and the legal amendment to the waste ordinance. We foresee start of this work within the next 4 weeks. The MP requests some type of approach to develop as for the public information regarding how the government and the ministry is going to deal with the many building requests that are in government. Why is it not a logical, chronological sequence of handling building requests? Ministry should put this in a clear outline. The first step involves gaining a clear understanding of the current status of the backlog. A draft overview has already been prepared to support this effort. During this process, it became evident that a significant amount of administrative work is required to improve both the accuracy of the information and the overall quality of the backlog. Out of this initiative came the realization for the need, for the example, of the manual on civil works, which will be going for stakeholder review shortly to make clear not only to the requirements, but also support efficient processing and decision-making within the ministry. Important to note is that the handling permits chronologically is oftentimes not the best solution due to the varying complexity of some requests and the required additional work. The next step for the ministry is to develop a policy or manual that outlines the prioritization framework for addressing requests. This document will also define how to handle requests that are deemed to be of national priority, ensuring structured and transparent approach to backlog management. In the meantime, we are working short-term to process quick fixes such as tabletops with various entities involved in permit processes, as well as addressing backlog in tandem with new files. Finally, we're exploring the option of technical assistance to support short-term interventions. To the MP's next question. While this was deemed urgent by the ministry as the road deteriorated in the last month, Well Road will be tackled with a permanent solution, not being part of the current resurfacing or hard surfacing project. Is the permanent solution underway? While road remains a priority, however, we have experienced budget challenges in carrying out necessary works. The estimated cost for a permanent solution is between 350,000 and 400,000 guilders. The intent is to implement a long-term fix rather than a temporary measure within the 2025 budget, and this will be included in the upcoming requests for CapEx road repairs. This is one of the reasons why the minister has been critical of the Hartsville project and has been closely monitoring its progress. Over the next few days, the minister will review the current state of the project and announce the way forward in 2025. Has this been decided, and what is the plan? As it relates particularly to the drainage situation in Coal Bay, over the summer, the ministry through the Department of New Works will introduce enhanced drainage under Union Road, the tender of which is currently being finalized. Design and engineering plans for upgrading the Orange Grove Road, including the implementation of drainage leading to the lagoon, were finalized a few years ago. While funding challenges have delayed the implementation, these well-prepared plans are ready to move forward as resources become available. How realistic is it to have this in 2025 CapEx? Madam Chair, an amount of 1.8 has been reserved from the 2025 CapEx to address drainage issues resulting from the Hartsville project and the Union Road. Yeah, 1.8 million has been reserved for CapEx to enhance drainage on Union Road. It is important to note that the current phase does not include specific plans for Orange Grove Road. That area will be addressed as part of a comprehensive drainage strategy for Coal Bay area. A public tender was issued in the project with scope solely for Phillipsburg. In a general sense, VRUMI is responsible for the purchase of bins. To make distribution fair, haulers are supplied with bins, and they in turn make these available for residents. Although it's an existing procedure, is it the intention to bring about changes to this to ensure proper logging of locations of bins taking place? Any progress in this matter? The current procedure does remain accurate. However, the government has not recently provided haulers with bins for distribution. While there are fewer than 100 bins currently in inventory, these are used for emergency cases. The estimated island-wide demand is approximately 3,500 bins. To address this, a capital expenditure request for the procurement of bins has been included in the upcoming draft 2026 budget. The Department of Infrastructure Management is also working to revamp bin distribution process to ensure proper logging of bin locations. This includes a proposed policy shift towards assigning ownership of bins to owners, with the aim of encouraging better care and accountability. This proposed change is presently under legal review and is intended for implementation in the short term. And of course, finally, the MP had one final question. She indicated that Ms. Felipe of Mayor had reached out and was trying to make a connection regarding the analyzing of developmental projects in St. Maarten. Are you aware, and has any progress been made? Okay. Madam Chair, it is your question, not through you. With respect to the question regarding the Netherlands Commission for Environmental Assessment, I can confirm that we have indeed been in contact and met with the Commission. Ms. Felipe from Mayor reached out, and we subsequently met with a representative of the Commission. During this meeting, several forward-looking proposals were discussed, including the possibility of establishing a kingdom-wide commission to support environment and social impact assessments across the Dutch Caribbean. Key areas of discussion included development of tailored capacity building programs, joint workshops, legal support aligned with international standards, and integration with broader initiatives such as Water as Leverage program. These efforts aim to strengthen strategic planning, improve transparency in environmental issues, and build institutional capacity in line with best practices from the EU and international financial institutions. As it relates to VNGI International, while there are no formal engagement in context to date with this, we do recognize the potential value of their involvement. The NGI International's extensive experience in supporting public sector governance and institutional reform. And we are exploring avenues for collaboration where their support could assist in strategic planning and the development of effective implementation frameworks for environmental governance. I will continue to keep Parliament informed, and we make progress in formalizing these engagements. Moving now to the question of MP Veronica Janssen, commends the Minister on the road works done. The road paint needs to be worked on. MP hopes the Minister will get the garage under the control as well. When will the current garage contracts come to an end? Does the Minister plan to tender in-house, or will hire a firm to do the tendering? It is very important for the claims of St. Maarten overall. The current waste collection contracts will come to an end the first half of 2026. Looking ahead, the Department of Infrastructure Management intends to bring in external consultants to support future tendering processes. This approach is aimed at raising overall quality of projects by incorporating additional expertise and ensuring higher standards in execution. And to the point of MP Janssen regarding the road paint complaints, indeed, I have taken note of this. It's something also I think MP York has brought on several occasions regarding the quality of the road paint. I have asked for a copy of the agreement made on what has been delivered, and that will then be reviewed and improved where possible. Because indeed, we are noticing that what we said we were going to get is not what we're getting in practice. This, Madam Chair, comes to the end of my questions, and I look forward to the clarifications from the floor.
Thank you, Minister Patrice Gums of the VROMI Ministry, for those answers provided. Members of Parliament, like we have established that the procedure for this Central Committee meeting is, we now continue with members having the opportunity to ask follow-up questions especially, but also if a question might have been overlooked in the general questioning session. We started out with a time frame of 60 minutes for all members regarding all ministries. However, we have also had established that if members exceed the 60 minutes per ministry, 5 extra minutes will be given in the event you need extra time to ask some additional or clarifications, additional questions or clarifications to any minister. So with that, we have had the first set of answers by the Minister of VROMI, and the opportunity to follow up on those answers from the Minister is granted to members of Parliament. And I start with the member Lacruz. MP Lacruz, you have the floor.
A blessed morning, Madam Chair Lady, Griffier, Honorable Minister and your support staff, my fellow colleagues, honorable members of Parliament, those watching and listening via all social media platforms. Madam Chair Lady, through you to the Minister, I have a couple comments concerning the answers, and I do somewhat understand, but I still need to bring this up because it's not what I actually expected. So, for example, my question number 1 concerning the total cost of building permits, what I understood the case was once a building permit is requested, at that point, there is a total cost on that, what it will cost to build that home, and a specific percentage is the cost for the building permit, 1.5%. So when the minister then tells me that he cannot calculate it, then I'm somewhat wondering if it's that he didn't get his staff to put this in place on time, but that answer is I'm still waiting for that answer. And I'm going to explain to the minister why that is important. If we have a problem with staffing in VROMI, my reason for asking that question is so that the minister could see exactly how much would have been in the coffers of government that would then be able to hire more personnel. And that is the problem straight across the board in government, through you, Madam Chair Lady. We are not paying attention to how much can come in to be able to hire more to do other things. If I was in that position, even if it would mean taking a project and putting it on hold for 3 months to be able to get these building permits out, that would have been my first choice to be able to do so. Because that will then mean that eventually things will get easier for the ministry and also for government. So I'm still expecting an answer on that, because I know that it is simple maths. If a building permit is 100,000 and government charges 1% of that, that's what should be in your coffers. You take all of those, add them up, and then I would get a reply. For my second question concerning the sewage water, thank you. That was just for the public to understand and hear. I have reached out to the minister before with these situations, and it was dealt with right away. So I do not want anyone to believe that the minister did not take the request seriously, but now they have an email that they could forward this information to the ministry themselves. Then, Madam Chair Lady, through you to the minister, my third question concerning the tendering of the tires by NRPB. I do understand the whole process, but at the end of the day, the NRPB sent out a tender, right, that is going to cost money, because you're asking a company to solve a problem that you think you have. My reason for asking the question to the minister is that there's a proposal in there that will cost government and NRPB nothing. There is a company that made a proposal to take and clean up the tires. So I don't understand why we then still have to look for someone to do it and pay them for it, while there's someone that is willing to do it free of charge. So that is somewhat with that. And then my questions concerning the housing foundation. I still need to sit and digest properly the answer from the minister and go back over the questions that I have, and maybe a little later down in this meeting, I'll come back to that if need to. If not, I am willing to send these questions directly to the minister so that he could reply to them. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP La Cruz. Does any other member require the floor at this time to respond to, ask for clarity or any such to the Minister of Romi? That does, I see, that does not appear to be the case. And does, yes, it does appear to be the case, as I see MP York is requesting the floor. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to yourself, Griffier, Minister, and the support staff, and the viewing public. Minister, I just have a few points for clarification, not many. In the beginning, in one of your answers, you stated that different materials are being used now for the road resurfacing project. Can I get an overview in writing which materials you're referring to? Also, a list of the removal orders. I think the Minister mentioned 24 removal orders. Can I get that in writing? I asked a question on the erosion in the hills, and if I'm not mistaken, the Minister answered that they're exploring retention ponds. I don't understand the correlation, but maybe I understood it wrong. If the Minister can explain what he meant with retention ponds as it pertains to the erosion problems in the hills. I asked for the calamity post. Where can I find it? The Minister referred to the Minister of VSA. Is it that the Minister of VSA, through you, Madam Chair, is returning today with that answer? Because he didn't mention anything of the matter yesterday. So if the minister can clarify that. The sucker guarding pump will be out until December, if I understood correctly. So what's the plan for the interim if we were to encounter heavy rainfalls between now and then? Also, what is the thought process? I understood with the boom, the minister said to you, Madam Chair, that the boom was issued as with a permit from VROMI. Can the minister explain the thought process behind that and the advice on that? I would also like to see that advice. And as well, I would like to request the initial and second design drawing for the marketplace, seeing that that also went through VROMI. I would like to request those drawings. Also, all communications through email that VROMI had with TIAT concerning the matter since, I would say, July 2024. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP York. MP Doran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to you, my colleagues, the Honorable Minister's support staff, the Griffier, and a special good morning to the people of St. Maarten that are tuned in. Madam Chair, I have a few questions as well as some clarifications. With regards to the question posed by one of my colleagues with the landfill tipping fee, I would like to understand through you from the minister, why is there a rush to try to push it through private law? If there's some sort of doubt, why not just complete the ordinance? I remember sitting in that same seat, and I remember the ordinance by the NRPB had to be completed. I think it was end of 2022, then it became end of 2023, and now we're hearing end of 2025. If the minister can get a response or some sort of indication from the NRPB as to why this is taking so long. I know that over the last couple of years, there have been so many different proposals, so many draft ordinances, so many studies being conducted in order to regulate our waste situation. So my question is, if almost all of the key elements are there already, why would it take another 6 months, hopefully, fingers crossed, because now I'm already envisioning maybe we're going to be here next year talking about it, maybe in the end of 2026. Why is it taking so long? And if some concrete dates can be provided to the minister from the NRPB. Madam Chair, I would like to ask through you to the minister, what is the status of the temporary worker or workers that were in the Ministry of VROMI that were left behind, I would say, to assist with expediting building permits? I think we had 1 or 2 individuals there pushing out building permits. I know that that was a great help. So I would like to know, are they still employed? If not, why not? And what is the minister's intention? Because when I heard my colleague MP La Cruz speak, what he says makes perfect sense. It's all about cost-benefit analysis. If you can invest 100,000 guilders a year and be able to generate over 2-3 million, then it just makes sense to hire extra individuals to get that done. So I would like some clarity on that, and if it is the intention to go that route. With regards to the boom in Maho, Madam Chair, I remember I was criticized for not allowing or not granting or approving a building permit for the Beacon Hill security booth. And Madam Chair, my stance on that was clear, and it's still so today. This is a government road. Here you have citizens that are making use of long lease, trying to avoid others from being able to access via a government road. For me, that is wrong. It has never been right, and it could never be right in my mind. And I'm thinking that, so if it's allowed in Beacon Hill and it's allowed in Maho, then in Kiwi Drive, we should put up a boom at the end too, and Lime Road, or Radish Road, or wherever have you. Would that be allowed? That's a question, Madam Chair, through you. If a request from the homeowners of Kiwi Drive, Lime Road, Cassava Drive, Marigot Hill Road, Cocoa Plum, decide, which one? Raspberry, decide to put a boom or request for a boom, would that be granted by the Ministry of VROMI? And if not, why not? Because I see a sort of a classist situation taking place, and it's over the years, it's clear to what it is, and when you go against it in terms of being correct, you're chastised. So I'd like to know what sparked in the minister's brain to approve something like that. Madam Chair, When I asked about the rainforest points, the minister said no special pricing was given. Madam Chair, again, through you to the minister, I urge you to do your research and come back with the correct answer. And I want to confirm that no special price scaling was given once the deed was issued back in 2016, as you mentioned by then Minister Gomes. Was there a special tariff given? If not, can you provide the deed and provide what tariff is being paid and also what is being paid by others in the area, so for residential and commercial? Madam Chair, the minister also mentioned that there was no write-off from the long lease. I'm not sure if that's what the minister said because he used a lot of different words. So I'd just like to confirm that no write-off was given, nor was a write-off request submitted to Parliament, to the government. I understand that the request to give back some of the land was there. It was there before I came into office. Another one came again. But one of their conditions were they wanted to not pay for the years that they'd already exploited and utilized the land. And that was my issue. And what I was made to understand, that this current administration granted that. So I just want to be clear. So no bunch of playing with words. Let's just be clear. Was a request submitted to write off what was already owed for the land exploited for all those years in exchange for giving back? I understand, of course, as a country, if we're getting back land, we're going to take it. That's for sure. That's a no-brainer. But was the condition to write off, I think it was almost $1 million guilders that was owed. And since the minister mentioned he doesn't have any information about any tax write-off, I would like to then submit this question, or if he can pass it on. No, tax also. If the minister can pass this through to the Minister of Finance to confirm that no tax write-off took place. So there's long lease fee connection, and then there's tax. So turnover tax, profit tax, whatever have you, just for clarification. And any tax exemptions to that matter. Madam Chair, I requested the court documents, the plight doors and all these things, and I was told that these are confidential. You gave an eloquent speech, Madam Chair, yesterday and gave a full explanation about confidentiality and how this works. Can you please put this on maybe on a white paper to the government so that they can understand the procedures and the rules of Parliament? Because I am seeing a trend, and now this is the same minister coming back for the second time. Yesterday we had the Minister of Finance indicate that things are confidential. Confidential to who? We are representatives of the people. I am not asking you to put your court strategies in the floor, because you did that already, Minister, when you mentioned that we are going to lose 3 court cases that haven't happened as yet. You know, so I'm asking for it to be provided through the confidential route. Madam Chair, I would also like to know, through you to the Minister, can you give a list of all major developments with current active construction, that are currently active in construction, that are valued, let's say, for instance, over 2 million guilders, and if you can list the locations. I would like to know through you, Madam Chair, what is being done to stimulate development and guide in Phillipsburg? The Minister of TIAT recently had a town hall meeting about Phillipsburg. What is VRUMI involvement in this whole beautification, if any? And I would also like to know if the minister can indicate the permit applications and indicate the value that those that are in right now that are over 2 million guilders. This also gives an idea to the public as to what is to be expected in our economy. I heard my colleague MP La Cruz request for those numbers, and I think that the minister maybe needs to dig a little deeper within the ministry to get that information, because every budget debate, I provided an estimated construction value, which gives the indication as to the money that is turning in the economy. For instance, if I apply to build a 3-bedroom home, it costs 250,000 US, 450,000 guilders. You would then have an estimated construction value there. You would then add that up, and at the end of the year, roughly, you would be able to say, in 2023, this is the review, in 2024, and this is also the projection moving forward. So I urge the minister to do a little bit more homework, because that information is definitely there, and it's in the system as well, for sure. Because we also provide that to the Ministry of TIAT, to the policy department, for them to conduct their studies, to give their indications as to how much money is turning in the economy. Through you, Madam Chair, I would also like to know from the minister how many civil works permits have been requested to date for 2025, and also how many civil works permits has been granted in 2025. Based on the request date and the issue date, what is the average processing time for this year for civil works permit in days? How many days would that last, approximately? Madam Chair, when it comes to court cases, I know all about them, because I think I had a record in the Council of Ministers with various court cases that I had to fight for old matters, current matters, and things that I decided to stand up against. One of those being Alegria. Currently, as we speak right now, I want to go to the point that citizen jurendi, because things I did as a minister, Alegria is now taking me to court personally for me blocking and standing up for the people of St. Maarten. And if it have to happen, Madam Chair, I'll do it all over again. I'm saying that to say the government is also a defendant in that case. Now, imagine this. The government doesn't want to provide documents, and also, in my opinion, sometimes willfully don't provide documents and also influences court cases, comes here on the floor of Parliament, mention that we are about to lose court cases that haven't happened as yet in the future, jeopardize government position. I can't imagine what the government will try to do to me in this case. But guess what, Madam Chair? As I mentioned, as a big boy, I pull up my big boy pants and continue to fight for the people of St. Maarten, because at the end of the day, what they were planning to do were take away opportunities for taxi, bus, and tour guides, and I fought for that, and I'll do it all over again. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I look forward to the responses and all the documents that were requested, if that can be provided confidentially. Thank you.
Thank you very much, MP Doran. The next MP up to speak on this topic is MP York. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple added points for clarification. Minister, I requested the email thread between Vromi and TIAT as of July 2024. I would like to change that to December 2023. Addition to that, if I understood the math, the minister said there were about 580 odd plus building permits still open. Can he verify that, if I got that? So that's the total of amount of building permits open as of today, outstanding. And did I understand properly that between January and now, there are about 50 permits approved? Can the minister confirm those numbers? Also, the road in question going towards Blue Marine, that the ministry recently gave a permit to build a boom on. I would like to know, how long does that road exist? Can the minister tell me the amount of years that that road is now in existence, that access road is now in existence? And is the minister, coming back on something that MP Doran alluded to, is the minister aware of the precedent that is being set with that decision? And lastly, Minister, through you, Madam Chair, you attended a meeting with the Minister TIAT, where you guys informed the market vendors of the delay and the reasons of the delay as it pertains to the marketplace. In this meeting, it was said by the Minister of TIAT that the holdup is because of internal sabotage within the Vromi ministry. Can the Minister explain this? Can the Minister confirm if this is really the case? And why did this have to be said via the Minister of TIAT first and not the Minister of Vromi, if it is true? So, Minister, can you explain to people, is it indeed a Vromi-related issue? Is it a TIAT issue? Is it a communication issue between Vromi and TIAT? And regardless of the answer, why did the Minister of TIAT point the fingers at your ministry? And used the term sabotage. And if the minister, and why did the minister not take that word out of the air? Because that is something now that's being spread. So can the minister elaborate on that? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP York. I now give the floor to MP Irian. MP Irian, you have the floor.
Good morning, Madam President, Secretary General, members of Parliament, the Honourable Minister and his support staff, and the viewing public at large. Good morning. Through you, Madam Chair, in the previous budget debate, the Minister mentioned, and I believe the Minister of TIAT mentioned, that we were going to get garbage bins for Great Bay. We are 6 months removed from that promise. I don't see it being delivered, or I haven't seen it delivered. So where are we with this, the garbage bins for Great Bay? It's 6 months away. 6 months removed from that. And that is exactly what I believe myself and at that time MP York mentioned in the presentations, that we should be very careful of creating a pie-in-the-sky story with all these presentations and not being able to meet expectations or deliver on them. Through you, Madam Chair, the Minister also mentioned in a previous meeting, well, we had a previous meeting regarding VROMI, and a lot of questions weren't answered there, so a few of them have come back up again, especially through the public. Minister mentioned that if you don't build within a year, your building permit can be immediately revoked. So my question to the Minister is there a plan from the Minister and his vision or the ministry that will review all these building permits and ensure that they avoid future issues pertaining to civil works, so persons could build freely, or not when they start to build with open court cases and continue to show disparity within the Ministry of ROMI when it comes to civil works permits and how they are handled and who is targeted? Is there a plan for that? Or is the Minister going to review building permits that are a year or older? Because now, Minister, you have the opportunity to ensure that the future is shaped in the vision that you have. So no more saying, hey, yes, this was published 3 years ago, 4 years ago, because you have the power now to ensure that going forward, all building permits that are a year or older gets reviewed. And I'm pretty sure that would be more than likely the majority. So now the ball is in your court to avoid any future court cases, etc. The Minister also, another question pertaining to garbage. Has there been any recent bids, or when is the bid for garbage going out? When is the bid for garbage supposed to go out? When does the contract end? And going back, continuing with the civil works, because this is a topic I even saw St. Maarten Pride tagging you a few times now also on this issue in Port Bazant. Civil works is now a very big topic. You've made it a very big topic, but the issue with the civil works is it is a big topic, but the public is not getting proper answers, and there's not a clear distinction into who, what, when, how the ministry operates. If you look at some of the hills now in Kobe, for example, we see some excavation works happening and so forth. Do all these excavation projects have civil works permits? Has the ministry gone in to assess if they do or not? Someone mentioned to me that they saw slave walls by one of them. What does the ministry do in terms of civil works permits, slave walls, the culture department? And so what could be done? What about another issue like we had in Kobe prior? Again, the ministry mentioned that civil works permits will be done on a case-by-case basis. Through you, Madam Chair, doesn't this show some sort of discrimination? Because what is the criteria to even start the review? The minister mentioned the impact of the permit. What is it? Who determines the impact? How heavy is the impact? Where's the documentation to say this one is impacting society more than this one? How do you determine that? The minister also mentioned large impact or large project. What is a large project? And you can have a small project that impacts society even more than a big project, depending on where it is and how the design is, and water flow, and septic and sewage and so forth. Matter of fact, the minister said for everything, even up to a septic, you need a civil works permit. So again, how can Parliament get proper documentation so that we could disseminate to the public on how the minister is planning to deal with civil works going forward? Because I can't believe that the minister is going to say that for a couple of civil works permits, we're going to do retroactively and a few not. We need a very clear answer going forward on civil works permits. Because what I'm seeing now is a lot of concerned developers, some that feel targeted, some that feel that they are getting away because of who's in government. And I think that should never be the thought or the talk of the citizens of St. Maarten. That'll be all, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Irian. The next MP up to speak is MP La Cruz. MP La Cruz, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, to you, to the Minister, I'm still going to go over the questions that I had concerning the St. Maarten Housing Foundation. And the first question is related, or the first set of questions related to land allocation for social housing development. And what I'd like to get from the minister is a feel if at the end of my questions, or even when he's answering the questions, if he understands the importance of the St. Maarten Housing Foundation and the trickle-down effect of a lot of other things for the citizens of St. Maarten. So the availability of land for the expansion of housing projects, okay? So transfer government-owned land in areas like Hope Estate, Upper Princess Quarter, that are already in reserve, I understood, for the St. Maarten Housing Foundation and social housing. Can the minister facilitate this, make it a little faster? Streamline land policies, so implementing policies to expedite the allocation of zoning and land specifically for affordable housing projects. Increase the rental subsidies to suit the demand. The rental subsidies that are received now are very much outdated and not working out. So if the minister could look into that. Access to project financing, for example, from the NRPB. Right now, Hope 3 would add another 100 apartments to the Housing Foundation's portfolio. With a little help, I think 100 homes would mean a lot for the people of St. Maarten. So if the minister could look into that, see what the possibilities of that are, or even European investment opportunities. Then a question for the minister: Does VRAMI have a housing department? And if it does, is it functional? Do we have a housing policy from government? Then If we don't, I'd like to know if the minister thinks that it is a good idea. And the minister said that he had previous meetings with the Housing Foundation. So a question, do they have a digital infrastructure system in place? A digital infrastructure system. So a system that they could track payments and, you know, and if they don't, is it an idea, for example, that via government this could be requested via CapEx? So the idea is that in these meetings that the minister said he has every other month, that these things would come up. And I have other questions too. But I just want the minister to know which direction I'm going. Okay? So I think it is important that when the Housing Foundation requests building permits, that it is expedited. I believe requesting GB connections, that those things are expedited, because this is not a normal one home. This is a whole project that will actually give a lot more people a home. So if the minister could look into that, and I'm going to put the questions in a nice way that the minister could get a good overview of what I'm asking. And then if he would answer those, I would appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP La Cruz. I now give the floor to MP Waver. MP Waver, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to Griffier, Honorable Minister, support staff, my honorable colleagues in the House of Parliament, those viewing via whichever media. Before I start, Madam Chair, based on what you stated earlier, would it be possible to get a time check to see how much time everyone has?
For every,
Is that possible?
You would like to know that?
Yeah.
For everyone? It would be something that I would have to compile.
Oh, would they send it to us? Digital? That's fine.
That's no problem. I will definitely, I can have it compiled. I don't have it here at hand, but it can be compiled. In your particular case, I don't think you run in any risk right now in terms of time. So,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
but was that your question, MP, or you had?
No, that was just a first statement, and I want to just dovetail a bit on what MP La Cruz mentioned earlier about the Housing Foundation.
Everybody dovetailing today.
And affordable homes. Minister, just for you to know as well, when I was minister, I did have a meeting with the Housing Foundation to see how we could transfer certain lands to two persons, because it's important to have ownership in this country. And some of the areas which we discussed was Foga Estate and the South Reward area, where the Housing Foundation has these homes in place, where we pretty much, that they agreed that they would be willing to pretty much turn over the homes to those persons that are living in it already for a symbolic fee that would be then discussed between the ministry and the Housing Foundation. So I would then suggest for the minister to touch base with the Housing Foundation to see if that's still feasible, and that way we are able to create immediate home ownership for those persons living in those areas. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Waver. I now kind of go back over some of the speakers who have spoken already, as they have indicated their desire to make a follow-up, and I give MP York the floor. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just 2-3 things quick, Minister. Can I have a list of the upcoming 12 months, which projects you plan on, to you, Madam Chair, the Minister plans on rolling out? So the projects for the next 12 months, and can the Minister divide them into which projects he'll be using, be paying out of the direct budget, and which project will be paid out of CapEx, and which year CapEx? And lastly, Minister, I would like to add to the questions already posed about the access road and the boom going towards Blue Marine and Point Pirouette. Can the Minister explain, or can the Minister confirm if Blue Marine, at the entrance of Blue Marine, if there's already an existing boom? And can the Minister confirm if at the entrance of Point Pirouette, if there's already an existing boom with security guards for both? If so, I really don't understand the need for the third boom at the beginning of the access road. So again, can the Minister motivate that? And can the Minister describe how this does not seem like a class segregation? So can the Minister explain that? And again, can I have the advices for this permit? Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. MP Erin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, in regarding your statement, the backlog of the building permits, can we get a answer regarding, to Madam Chair, the process that the ministry takes, or the minister takes? I believe the minister maybe does it differently than previous ministers. So are we using the FIFO system, so first in, first out, in terms of permits coming in, first in, first out? Minister also mentioned that, yes, we have some projects or building permits might take long because it might be more complex, I understand, so those might take longer, but it doesn't negate the fact that it's still going to be following the FIFO, so first in, first out. Because this one is a more complex project, yes, but the others that are coming in are still following the first in, first out. Or is it going to be, let's say, the minister deciding, I'll pull this one out, I'll pull this one out, you work now, you work on that one, or maybe even SG deciding on which ones has more priority. And then who determines, right, what is more impactful, or who determines the prioritization in terms of the importance of building permits? For example, we have the marketplace that doesn't have a building permit, but is that going to be prioritized over, let's say, private citizens? So is the government going to say, I'm going to give priority to our projects, even though they were last minute, even though they weren't done properly, etc., over private citizens? Or is even those, let's say, projects that the government has put on bid, for example, do they get priority over other projects? And where are we now with the marketplace? Where are we with the marketplace design? We hear things on radio accusing the minister of certain things. So I would like clarity from the minister himself. Where are we with the marketplace design? Is it true that the reason why we don't have the marketplace today is because of the lack of effort by VROMI, or the push by VROMI, or VROMI being a hindrance in progress? Can we get clarity on that? And can we get a design of, can we get a copy of the first building permit, the first design, and the second design? And have you ever gotten the results of the soil test? Can we get the results of the soil test? I also had some complaints from certain developers, again, that feel targeted, and saying, yes, the minister is allowing a lot of projects within the lagoon area and Sint Maarten Lagoon to continue to be built without following the approved building permit, and also don't have civil burst permit. So can the minister confirm that all of the projects within the Sint Maarten Lagoon are in line with the building permit and have civil burst permits? In the presentation from the Ministry of Finance, they mentioned, I believe, a backlog, through Madam Chair, of 22 million guilders in ERFPAC. In January this year, when I posed a question to the minister regarding the ERFPAC, and I requested to have the top 10 offenders, not the names, right, but the top 10 offenders and the amounts. So I don't need to know the names, so we have 1 to 10. What are the amounts per 1 to 10? The minister then said he needed some more time. So now we have 6 months 6 months passed. So I'm assuming the minister now have those. So minister, can we have, based on the fact the Minister of Finance is saying we have a backlog of 22 million guilders in ERFPAC, can we now have the top 10 offender amounts? And what has the minister done since to collect this money, because this current government came in and they ended our procedure in collecting the backlog in AirPac, because we thought it was very important to be able to continue to get revenue from the government. So what is this government doing, in particular the Minister of Rami, doing to be able to collect the 22 million guilders, because the government continues to say we need more funds? And regarding the whole garbage process and bidding process at NRPB, can the minister confirm if the ministry or through the minister stopped any sort of bidding processes for the tires, garbage, or anything related to Vrummy in the last couple of months? And that'll be all, Madam Chair, for now.
Thank you, MP Irian. MP Duran, you have the opportunity as well to address any topic at this point.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few brief ones. Regarding the cleanup that we see taking place on the landfill, where the company with all the red machines, which I think did the lagoon cleanup as well, I would like to know through you, Madam Chair, if the minister can get the detailed information of the whole bidding process for that, because I realize that all these red machines are showing up all over the island, especially when it comes to NRPB projects, and we realize that our local contractors are being left out and sidelined. So I would like to know if I can get some kind of information on how that is going. And Minister, I heard you when I was reaching here on the radio mention through you, Madam Chair, that a forensic audit is taking place. Do you mean a forensic audit on the bribery allegations that you mentioned that is taking place within the ministry, a forensic audit on how to increase the efficiency in the processes? Can you give some clarity on that, please? Also, Minister, through you, Madam Chair, lady, I would like to get the reports, because yesterday the Prime Minister mentioned that a report was done for the alleviation, give the relief to the people based on the fuel clause with GB. Can we be provided with that report, even if it's in the confidential route? Lastly, touching back on the whole Alegria saga, I forgot to mention, but I had it written in my notes. What I do find ironic, Madam Chair, is that I'm being taken to court directly, the government as well, but a lot of the main culprits, meaning former civil servants, former ministers, that are also in other functions, they are not being taken to court. So I just want to put that out there, because those are the ones that put the gerechtvaardig vertrouwen in these persons and giving them the idea that they were going to get the 14,000 square meters to build a pier and a sea aquarium and whatever have you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, MP Duran. MP York, am I seeing that you want the floor again? You may briefly make use of that opportunity.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is really the last one.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, through you, about this forensic audit. Is it indeed a forensic audit? Is it an audit? And who will be executing this forensic audit? Because I think the minister referenced something about TWO, but I don't think TWO does forensic audits. So can the minister explain which entity will be doing this, if it's indeed a forensic audit? If not, can the minister rectify that word? Because right now it's being spread as if it's a forensic audit. Can the minister clarify that? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, MP York. And Minister, before I turn the floor over to you to hear how you would like to respond to the questions, I just wish to comment on a request made by MP Duran, and that is the one for the report that the government and in particular the Prime Minister received regarding GB, and let the MP know that the Prime Minister had indicated he would be sending it to Parliament, and thus we will be following up to remind him of that. Minister, let me begin by thanking you for the answers provided, and very specifically, Minister, I want to thank you for following up on my question about the Vromi ministry making use of the offered cooperation from the MER. Now the MER, de Milieueffectenrapportage, is basically something falling under the Netherlands Commission for Environmental Assessment. The Netherlands Commission for Environmental Assessment, established by law, is an independent, not-for-profit knowledge institute in the field of environmental and social impacts. This knowledge is used to advise and support Dutch and foreign governments in integrating environmental, social, and climate considerations in decision-making. This is done with integrity and in an authoritative and transparent manner. The vision is that the NCEA, the Netherlands Commission for Environmental Assessment, ensures that governmental authorities have access to the knowledge of environmental, social, and climate issues they need when making decisions. As a result, governmental decisions are of better quality, better substantiated, and more widely supported. In this way, the NCEA contributes to the quality of the living environment and to sustainable development in the Netherlands and abroad. Minister, I indicated to you as well that Ms. Simone Philippe, who was here in March, who coincidentally is a member, along with myself, of the Dutch Association for the United Nations, hence her reaching out to me in connection with her offer to St. Maarten to cooperate with the government and the VROMI ministry in particular in assisting in the manner that they can, which I just highlighted from their website. In addition to that, Minister, you might have been made aware of the fact that the Parliament of St. Maarten, represented by several members during our last visit to Panama, to Par Latino, it was not only about meetings of Par Latino, but St. Maarten, the Parliament of St. Maarten, is signatory to an alliance created by the Par Latino for climate justice and just transition. And it is my intention, based on that alliance paper, which of course I will be bringing to Parliament, to ask via the Committee of VROMI of Parliament to have Ms. Philippe, even if it be via Zoom, present what this particular Dutch institution can do in assisting St. Maarten. And Minister, from your side, I want to encourage you to take up that connection because of the issue of capacity that we keep hearing and the complexity of some of these matters that your ministry is facing. Fact is that when we see an institution like this, because of the scale of the Netherlands, they can have a concentration of expertise in the many different areas. Do we have the expertise? Yes, we do. But it is so thinly spread that we can't have the kind of concentration that you would need to put on a very complex matter. And thus, decision-making is stalled and delayed because of the process if you want to give it a good review. So, Minister, I really want to encourage you from my side and my network based on the Dutch Association for the United Nations. I will continue to push for that and share the information with the Parliament. But the government, I hope, can also do that. On a similar note, with respect to the VNGI, Vereniging Nederlandse Gemeenten International. And Minister, I heard your answer with respect to that. However, what I would like you to clarify for me, several months ago, I was told by an official of the VNGI that their agreement with the government of St. Maarten was coming to an end, and it did not seem as if it would have been extended. The same kind of assistance at not more than a subscription fee is also available for, again, our different ministries, including the Ministry of VROMI. And Minister, is it the intention to extend that formal agreement with the VNGI? And if not, is it an issue of money, of the subscription to be part of, or is it something else, if you can inform me of that? Thirdly, Minister, the matter of even the CFT in its report or advice on the fourth uitvoeringsrapportage has indicated that St. Maarten is not moving fast enough on using the CapEx budget. And when I hear some of your projects, ministers, that seem to be ready to go, road projects and the like, and then my question is, would it not be necessary to kind of reschedule and reprioritize capital projects based on those that can move one time, even though they would have been at a lower priority when the CapEx budget was made? I hope that question is clear as well. And Minister, that is what I would like to offer you in response to your questions and the challenges that your ministry face, especially to get this matter of the amount of pending requests for permits to at least establish a line where the handling of those are concerned. So, Minister, with that, I now look at you. You have several additional questions, and so my question is twofold. One, when would you be able to come back on these, to give these answers? I have heard several members. I wait for the minister to have a brief caucus there. But Minister, I was saying I've heard several members of parliament indicate that they would not mind receiving the answers to some of their questions in the report from the government with the answers, which must be with us before we even start the public handling of the budget. That's one. And then, yes, and then the question as to, is there anything you would like to say now in response to some of the questions or comments? And then, if not, what time would you need to, when would you be able to return? Minister, to you the word, if you can respond to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just some clarifications so we can understand the question from MP Irian through you. He mentions the projects in Simpson Bay, all projects in Simpson Bay. The question is just because this question was already asked earlier this year about projects in Simpson Bay continuing without civil works, and the question is just what projects, because it's very easy to stay on the floor of Parliament that things are continuing and reports are coming in. To date, we still have no information, even from the last meeting, as to what projects the MP is speaking about, because none of these projects, to my knowledge, when I asked, he just stated a general question. It's come up again now. So the question then, can the MP provide, even if confidentially, what list of projects he is hearing is continuing? We can then answer this question properly, because when asked a couple of months ago, it was a general question. So now it's more targeted. So who feels targeted? What are the projects? So we can actually answer the question. And just to, for the record state, we did provide you the top 10 offenders in the budget debate. So if you're asking for them again, not a problem. But for the record, it was provided as part of our responses correctly when we said first we didn't have the information. Then we did actually provide the information without the names being present. So just for the record, that was provided in the previous budget debate. Regarding the time when we can come back, let me just get 2 minutes to caucus with the team, and then we can convert.
What I'm going to do right now, Minister, I'll adjourn for like 5 minutes, giving you that opportunity as well as the opportunity for our secretariat to establish whether there is another minister who can come at this time, or we break for lunch. We need to make, make that determination. So let's let's adjourn right now for like 5 minutes. Meeting adjourned. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, Minister Patrice Gums and support staff, good afternoon and welcome back. Minister, you were going to look at your possibility or possibilities for returning and responding to the questions asked by members of Parliament. Could you please indicate that at this moment? Minister Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Noting the brevity of a number of the questions, what we are going to aim for is this evening, but of course we will keep Parliament informed as to the possibility of that, but we are going to work towards returning this evening by, let's say, 6 o'clock, but of course I will keep you informed if that's possible.
Thank you, Minister. That is noted. Members of Parliament, we will adjourn at this time, actually for lunch, because the next minister to appear in Parliament would have been the Minister of Finance presenting the answers to the Ministry of Justice. However, that is going to require some time, so rather than break halfway during that presentation, I am going to adjourn now until 2 p.m., at which time the Minister of Finance will present the answers to the Ministry of Justice questions, and followed, if everything goes according to plan, by the Minister of TIAT to respond to the questions posed regarding TIAT. And then we also have the Minister of VSA to return briefly. We just heard from the Minister of Romy as well. But that update, further than us restarting at 2 p.m. will be provided to the ministers and, of course, to the general public. So with that, I want to thank the Minister of Romy, Minister Gums and his support staff, the members of Parliament, and we're going to adjourn this meeting now until 2 p.m. Meeting adjourned.